Welcome back. Welcome if you're new to the channel. So this message is one that I've been wanting to speak about, and because of what's taking place and the way things are about to unfold for many, I'm going to talk about this now. So I'm going to talk about soulless, organic portals, synthetic portals, which are basically clones or robotic humans, which wear the same suit that you have. So you have the same physical suit. This physical body is the same, looks the same, feels the same, operates the same physically, except there's an energetic signature and the structure of the energy is different. Consciousness is different. The light, the frequency is different. The auric field is different. The soul, whether there's a soul or not a soul. We also have humans that are what I call lost souls or sleeping souls, which they have a soul, they're just dealing with operating from their lower nature, which is because they're not quite fully awakened yet, or they're dealing with a lot of attachments, could even be possession, entity attachments, things like that, and handlers that are keeping them stuck in that lower frequency. So this is a spiritual warfare. If this stuff freaks you out or doesn't resonate, don't watch. 84% from what I've been shown, 84% are either not awake or it's a mix between lost souls, the ones that are sleeping souls, and organic and synthetic portals. So these beings, which are the biological or organics, are basically birthed into this system, birthed in through mother or father. But at that birth, there's no merge with consciousness with a soul. So they have consciousness, they have that knowing, I guess, in the physical realm. They can operate, they can be extremely intelligent. They're a direct connection to the AI system or the matrix system. So they're actually used as portals for different entities, spirits, consciousness, information to take over and create through that being. So that being may not even be aware that they're an organic portal or a biological portal. It's not their fault either, so don't feel hatred towards them. A lot of times they'll mirror back to you and they'll trigger, because this whole matrix system is a psychological experiment. So I've talked about the free will experiment, the twin flame experiment, the ascension program. This is all a psychological experience. And with that, we have manipulation that's taking place of the programs and the experiments that have been put into place. So the manipulation of the system has created what you would call these organic and biological portals, which are human vessels that look, sound, walk, talk. You can even be in family or connection with these. A lot of times they can be family members, and that's for a reason. It's by design to keep you distracted, because when this manipulation took place, your soul is coming in either way. But there can be a manipulation of what you experience during a certain time frame where the light is basically overtaken by what you would call the darker forces. So I'll explain. You can have a parent that's a biological portal, a handler, and a lot of times if you have a soul, then your mother will have a soul. The mother is the creator in that sense, but the soul merges at birth. It does not come through one of the parents. But how I was seeing this or getting this information is if you have a soul, a lot of times, the more often the mother will have the soul also. And you can figure this out by how the nature of your matrix family works. So you could have a parent, even your children can be biological or organic portals if you don't have a soul yourself. So this is how it works. It's basically to keep you off of your path, keep you distracted, energy harvest from the souled beings. So the organic portals, synthetic portals, the biologicals, all are being used to basically funnel energy, siphon energy, suck energy from those that have souls. So the souled humans have a very large energetic field. We emit a massive aura and energetic field around us. And the organic portals do not have an aura. The synthetics or robotic ones have an energy that's a little bit different, but it's not an aura. It's basically just an energetic field. But it's not the same as an auric field. I'll show you guys with the drawings. And then we have those that are souled, but they're sleeping. They still have an energetic field. But what happens is these beings, these entities, these spirits will use these organic portals and synthetic portals to push a certain agenda. So the sleeping souls, or the ones that are not awakened yet, will continue to create, because we're the connection to source, we're the creators. We have that direct ability to create and manifest. So we are used by they put on this huge stage, which is the world stage, the media, the manipulation, to manipulate your mind and the perception of reality, but also use psychological components to distract you from your path. So you will have people brought into your life that are coming in to distract you. Not all are soulless, not all are synthetics or robotics or biological portals, organic portals. Not all are soulless. Many of them have souls, but they're being manipulated through a subtle vibration, through thought, through emotions that are not their own, because they've dealt with penetration of the auric field. So this is why you need to use discernment. Listen to your gut. If someone is triggering you completely, that trigger, there are entities feeding off of those triggers. So when you're being triggered, it creates, and I'll show you, it creates these holes in your aura. Every trigger, so you can have several entities feeding, bouncing back off whatever situation is going on, in order for them to feed and harvest off of that energy, the emotional response, and also damage the auric field so they can receive more energy from you, attach to you and receive more energy. So this is why it's important. If you're feeling triggered, if someone's continuously triggering you, that is not always a mirrored effect of you. A lot of times that can be psychological manipulation in order for you to experience a trigger, so then they can attach to your auric field and penetrate into that energy and siphon that from you. Especially if you're on this path, especially if you're a light worker, especially if you're making some kind of change in this system, or you know you're about to, you'll notice a lot of attacks. And what's going to happen now, because the veil is so thin, people are going to experience more internal knowing of who has attachments, who's being manipulated, who's being used, who's actually soulless, who's an op or a bot. You can figure this out. And this here, these transition of the eyes. So some, you can deal with some that you can see beyond the projection. So the projection is not them holding It's not them holding a certain form that you're not able to see. Their projection is coming from a mental space. So vibration, manipulation of the mind, and your own perception. And when you see beyond the illusions, you can have periods in time where you can see beyond the projection itself, which is really the manipulation of your own thoughts, your own mind, and how you're perceiving your reality and then projecting that into this system. So you can see beyond the projection at times, and then this is where you can notice a shift within the eyes. Now, when you go through the ascension, though, you can also get changes with your pupils, changes with your eyes. You can see them shift. So this isn't what I'm talking about. You'll have an intuitive knowing that this person just gives off a certain vibe, a certain energy. You can't quite pinpoint it, but it doesn't make you feel good, or there's just a lack of connection there. And that's usually because there's no soul. The lack of connection is because there's nothing behind. And you can feel this when you're speaking to these beings. And I encourage you to have conversations when you're out and about. So you can use these portals to create, because they're directly connected to the system. And I'll talk about that in a separate part of this. But also to understand how this works, understand the manipulation that's taking place, the psychological manipulation. So having these conversations, not doing that until you're in a place where you can have these conversations and see beyond that, see beyond the illusion. And this is really where discernment comes in. And I'll get into that more too. But the transition here is always like this. Every single one that I've seen is always like this. And I've seen this since I was about 8 years old. From here to here to here, it's a lot slower. So if you're going to catch this shift, you're going to kind of have the awareness of it from here to here. And then it's going to hit you like what happened from here to here, and they shift right back. So it's basically going from a circle to like a misshapen circle, kind of like a square, to a line, and then a bigger line, and then back to a circle. You'll feel this because it's almost like you both catch each other. You catch the truth in that moment. And this is that moment in the middle here where things kind of slow down. It's almost like, and then you question yourself. When you get to this point, you'll question whether that's what you saw or not. And at that point, they'll usually be dipping out. They'll be gone. They'll be ending the conversation, creating some type of distraction, or they'll actually just leave. They'll, all of a sudden they have to go. Usually you'll catch this at that time. From what I've experienced in the beginning of a conversation or a connection, contact, I've seen this, but then the contact is very limited because it creates like a disconnect within that AI, within that organic or biological portal or synthetic. It creates that entity, creates like a disconnect within the vessel that they're using, the portal that they're using. So you'll catch them fluster a little bit, or there'll just be a shift in the energy. You'll pick up on this. And the more and more that you're tuning in to your environment, you're going to feel this and you're going to see this. And it's nothing to be fearful of because it's all around us. It's literally human vessels. The bodies are used as, it's used as warfare, psychological warfare. This is where game stalking comes in. But it's used to keep you stuck. It's like a prison. These bodies, you can think of these bodies placed in all these different directions as actual bars to a prison cell. They're keeping you stuck, trying to keep you stuck, trying to keep you in an area that keeps you stuck so you're not moving forward. So the synthetic portals, soulless ones, the clones, the robotics, the ones that are genetically created. You can think of these as clones in like a lab. These ones have the lower chakras. They have a stronger energetic signature, and it actually kind of looks like this. It kind of, the way the sound waves come out looks like Frankenstein. It looks like they're coming from the neck and the two temples down here. And I believe this is coming from the solar plexus and the lower chakras. This energy wave down here. And this could be different, but these are the ones that I've seen. And obviously the drawing is not perfect, but let me see. Now, the organic portals, the soulless, the ones that are birthed in, the biological ones, they have a weaker energetic signature, but they also have the 3 chakras. Then we have the ones that are sleeping, the lost soul, sleeping soul, the human. They have an auric field. They do have all the chakra systems, but only part of them are active. Usually it's the lower chakras. Usually it's the root chakra only, sacral. You know, sometimes they'll have experiences where they're having that feeling of the heart chakra, the activation of the heart chakra, but they're not fully engaged. The chakras are not fully engaged beyond a certain point. That's what keeps them asleep. And many go through lifetimes and lifetimes without getting past this point. So we have 84% of the population that's stuck in the matrix. We have 16% that's awakened. That could be different. This is what I've gotten in the past. Another thing, when you're seeking information, do not go seeking outside of yourself. Internally, do not force yourself to try and connect to other beings, other spirits, doing all these different things, wanting to channel information. It will come naturally to you if it's meant to come naturally to you. If it's not, don't try and force it, because then you're putting yourself at risk to connect with beings that can manipulate your vessel, and then you just become a puppet, basically. So if this information's not coming from the connection within yourself and kind of like a spontaneous thing, something that is more natural, I guess, I would not try and force that. We all have this connection to source. All have this connection to other beings, other consciousness, other angelics. But if you're doing this from a way that's outside of yourself, outside of your own beliefs, outside of your own spirit, your own soul protecting you, you're not going to have that discernment. You're not going to be using your own belief system. You're going to be taking on the beliefs of others. And this is also with religion and the teachings, our school system, the government, the media, our music industry, our language, everything that's keeping people stuck. All of that is a manipulation, psychological experiment, manipulation of the mind, manipulation of your perception of your own reality. So you're creating and manifesting by default, especially if you have a soul, then you're being used by the system. These are machines, so they're not that you should hate them, but they are machines. Let me see. The reason I'm bringing this up is because they will be interested in spirituality. They'll be interested in astrology. They'll be interested in all these things because this is the age that we're moving into. This is something that's becoming more of a fad. Now, I'm not talking about the people that just appear on YouTube with all this information that haven't been around. Myself, I don't like putting myself in the spotlight. I don't like having attention on me. I don't like being like, here, this is who I am. This is whatever, everything I can do, all the information I can get. I don't like putting myself out there, but this is part of something I knew that I had to do. I did wait for quite a while, but I did put information out in different ways over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm going to share that probably on a different platform. So the website I had, actually, I shared a lot of that information before I did this channel. But these are machines. They're here to suck your energy, funnel your energy, create manipulation and distortion of your mind so you're doubting yourself. Also create triggers because there's that psychological component, and they're connected to the system, they're connected to this intelligence where they know what triggers are going to bring about that emotional response within you and create that shift in your energy so you can be vulnerable to these other attachments, to these entities. So it's a game. You have to see beyond the game. And when you're being triggered like that, you have to realize that even if you feel that it's something within yourself, like something that you have to work with, there's still an entity, there's still attachment that's feeding off of that energy, off of that trigger. Anything that is giving you that feeling that doesn't feel good, there is an entity and there's something feeding off of that. There's a spirit that's not your thought, that's not your emotion, that's a program. That's a program of the system. You'll feel drained energetically. You'll doubt yourself. They can be very convincing, very determined. They have a type of artificial telepathy where they're not even aware that it's taking place. So it's synthetic telepathy, meaning they're receiving a thought and emotion to act, speak a certain way. They're not even aware that they're doing it to create a trigger within the souled human. So then that disrupts their auric field, disrupts their vibration in that moment to create vulnerability to entities or attachments for the aura so they can latch on, suck that energy, and keep you off your path. They usually will gossip. That's one thing. They won't see their fault in anything, so they won't see flaws in anything. Survival kind of depends on keeping other people down in a way that can be very passive aggressive, very manipulative. And a lot of us have dealt with this. All of us have dealt with this. If you're a light worker, you've dealt with this. A lot of light workers have attachments or have had attachments. Nothing to be it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's because this is what forces us to go through this awakening process, to force and purge that out of ourselves. And if you've been on your path, you've been in this higher vibration, you will not be drawn to have those lower desires with someone who is not meeting your vibration. So here's the thing. If someone is meeting your vibration and you're intimate with them, it's because there's a resonance there and you're passing on attachments, entities when you're intimate with someone. This is why I don't have sex right now. This is why since my awakening, I haven't done that. I'm very careful with who I give my energy to. You're giving them access to your soul. Now draw. You're giving them access to the seat of your soul where they can link, where their karma, their attachments become yours, and it comes deeply imprinted within your chakras, within your soul, where the soul is. You start to experience an energy shift in your life, and things start happening in your life that are not in the way that you want them to, because you're taking on their energy, you're taking on their attachments. So if someone is depressed, they're toxic, they're partying, doing drugs, suicidal, you take on that. And that can take a very long time for that to be released. And a lot of times it'll come to the surface when you have an activation Kundalini awakening, you'll start having all of this come to the surface where you have to clear and purge those attachments, those energies, that manipulation, because the vibration has shifted. And people don't even realize that this is what happens. Let me see. They can be quite rational. A lot of times they're very rational. They're very logical. Let's do this way. Let's, very convincing. And that's to create confusion and doubt within yourself. Okay, a lot of times they must be right, or they'll do it in a way that makes you doubt yourself, so you feel that they could be right, even though there's just to create doubt and confusion, basically. Okay, they have a role, they have a script here in the system, in the matrix. They're actors, we all are, kind of, in a way, whether you have a soul or you don't have a soul. But they want you to get stuck in that energy, in that moment, so they can feed off of your energy. They want you to be distracted. They want you to get stuck in that moment. They want you to be triggered so they can create vulnerability within your energy field and latch on and then drain from your energy, because you hold that huge energetic field. They don't. They need that. They need that to survive. So they're drawn to people that have this abundant energetic supply. So this is another thing. If you have this huge aura, you can deal with a lot of these attacks, but you can also prevent them, because staying strong in your authority, which is that type of spirit confidence, or confidence within your own soul, your own spirit. Don't ever doubt yourself, ever. Doesn't matter who it is. If it's a parent that's creating doubt and confusion, don't listen. If it's a soulmate, a twin flame, a karmic, don't ever listen, because that doubt, that confusion is an entity that's feeding off of that. Let me see. You'll notice that it's more about the physical. Now, some can have attachments that make them more about the physical at certain times, more about the physical realm, money, the senses, food, sex, attention, power, things of a third dimensional consciousness. That doesn't mean that everyone that is in that energy doesn't have a soul. It means that they're just playing in that consciousness, which could be because there's manipulation. They'll deliberately create confusion, so you doubt yourself, so you question yourself, especially if you've been on your path. So if you've been on your path, you're doing your thing, you feel good. Anyone that comes in and starts creating doubt, just know that there's an entity that's feeding off of that. There's psychological triggers that are being used through the system to create that. You can go by your own discernment whether that person has a soul or doesn't have a soul, but just know that there's something feeding off that trigger. So don't allow that to happen. Don't think that you need to explain yourself to anyone either. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't explain yourself. The more you're feeding that energy, the more they're taking from you. So if someone is making you think that you have to talk everything out and you have to get an answer and this needs to be done this certain way, that's because that's a draining of your energy. To keep putting more energy and effort into that conversation or that experience, they're sucking more of your energy, and then you are left depleted and feeling like crap. So it's basically like a human prison. They're using these human suits to create manipulation, doubt, distraction, keep you stuck, but also feed off your energy. And no matter what you do too, you'll never be right. You'll have the feeling as if you can never be right with them. That's another thing. They can be very programmed to speak perfectly, say the right things, be polite. Not all of them, but there's different scripts, different programs running. Their direct connection to the system. A lot of cops, not all cops, this is another thing. A lot of them are part of the system, the government, the media, Hollywood. Not all, but most. You'll notice that when you start speaking, sharing certain information, like I just had a helicopter flying over my house. I live in the country. Anytime I start coming online to do certain things, like sharing information, or I'm doing a reading and certain information that I'm picking up on, that just comes through. When I start sharing that, I'll notice I'll have a helicopter, I'll have a drone, or I'll have like a cop driving up and down my street, sometimes pulling in my driveway to turn around. It's just ridiculous. There's no reason for it. And the ones that are aware of this matrix system and the scripts and the role plays and how everything is synced up and it's just orchestrated, you'll see this taking place when you're out and about. You'll just know. Pull out of your street and you'll know exactly who's synthetic, who's real, who has a soul, who doesn't have a soul, who's a sleeping soul. You walk out and about, you can tell by the energy, you can tell by how they feel, you can communicate to them, obviously, but there's that disconnect that's there also. Doesn't mean that it's their fault. A lot of times this is people that are in our environment, everyday environment. So wherever you're out and about in the school system too, the children deal with this. This is where there's a lot of these triggers with the children, and they come home so drained and depleted, or they deal with bullying and things like that. It's a psychological manipulation, psychological triggers to penetrate through that auric field. Doesn't mean that's anything to be fearful of. It means that you need to step in your own authority, because it's a war on your spirit, on your soul, on consciousness, on moving past this third dimensional consciousness. So you have to stand in your own truth, in your own power, your own authority. Have that confidence within your own spirit. Do not seek outside of yourself. Use discernment. If this doesn't resonate with you and you're continuing to watch, you're not listening to your intuition. You're not paying attention to what your soul is trying to tell you. So if this doesn't resonate, don't watch. Unsubscribe. Don't continue to watch the channel, because then you're feeding other beliefs that are not matching with your own. You're not being true to yourself, and you're creating confusion. And it's like that back and forth energy. And that's what they want. No matter what you do, I think I already said that, you're not going to feel like you're doing it right with this type of system or these people. We're all energy vampires by nature, not even realizing it, until we develop our own source of energy, until we go through this process, until, in my opinion, the Kundalini is fully awake, fully active. And you can see by the actions, someone has a fully active Kundalini, they won't be in a lower vibrational relationship anymore. It will not resonate. They will not be having sex with people that are of a lower vibration, or they're, into drugs or things that are not going to help your soul grow and your spirit grow. They just won't do it because it will not resonate. They won't be able to stay in that energy vibrationally without it bringing them down to match that vibration. Once you ascend past a certain point, you'll be very protective with your energy and who you allow in your space. They don't have a crystalline structure. They won't be moving past this third dimensional or this third density. Through this density shift, they won't be moving past. They'll get to a certain point. So a lot of them can operate astral realm. But these bodies have been created, these organic portals that are operating from the lower chakras, the synthetics, the robotics. they cannot operate past a certain point because they only have the chakra systems that are keeping them stuck in the third dimensional matrix system. So more could be created where they're able to adjust to this density change, but they still won't be able to connect at the level that the collective with souls are able to, because we're moving into complete connection to source and the embodiment of source or God or whatever you want to call it, which is just you, your soul, your spirit. Hang on 1 minute. Never mind. All right, so you can tell who's leaving, who's not leaving, or you will be very soon. You can see, and they're going to start acting kind of aggressive in a way to create more triggers so they can latch onto your energy, and it's happening at an unconscious level because they're not even completely aware that they're being used, or there's like a deeper knowing that some transition is taking place and they can no longer exist in this realm or this density. So it's kind of like that fight or flight response that's taking over in order for them to latch on to the ones that are producing this energy, which are the souled ones. You cannot save them either. And they're everywhere. You can't save them. You can't help them. You can help the ones that are not awake, but you cannot help the ones that are not souled. They'll act alike. They'll be into similar things. They'll be into what is in. So if the spiritual community grows, doesn't mean that all are not souled, because this is an awakening, but there will be infiltration, and there already has been. People already know that. That's not something that I need to say. And this is because now it's becoming more of a fad. They don't actually live this lifestyle. It's more of to connect and create confusion, distraction within the community. And it's attack on the divine feminine also. I'm going to get into another video on, actually, I think I already have one. So I'm going to upload, I'll have to find it. I think I still have it, but it's about the divine feminine and the suppression of the feminine, the moon cycles, your power during the moon cycles. So I'll try and upload that. I'll have to look for it. Let me see. So another thing is talk to them, learn the psychological component, the manipulation. And this is when you become able to use the system to your advantage, where you're able to put a signal out through these portals. So if you think of these people as portals to the system, you can put a message out, and then your reality will be synced up to match that message. So say you want a certain thing, a certain experience, put that message out there, and you'll start to notice that more ops will be brought in to match whatever it is, whatever experience you're desiring, or energy you put out there. And this is also for the souled ones, because that's the direct connection to source. So you're able to create by just putting that information out there, by speaking that, by feeling that, but it's more of the emotion behind it and the knowing, the authority of the soul, the spirit. So when you know something and you put that out with that emotion, we're all transmitters, we're all receivers, so you can bounce that energy off other people. If you think of them as portals, doesn't mean that you're manipulating the system, it means that you're seeing how this system works. Another thing is the more violence and things like that, lower vibrational things you watch, that's infecting the psyche, and that's only creating more of these attachments. See, I don't know if you can see that. It kind of looks like Frankenstein. The way, this is from a while ago, but that's something that I noticed with these beings. There's usually no empathy. There's a lot of desire, there's lust, there's greed. Doesn't mean that all that have these qualities, because we've all had these, does not mean that that's a soulless person, but those are strong indicators that there's either an attachment program running that system, that person, that vessel, or that's robotic or organic portal. Let me see. The robotic ones or the synthetic ones are usually the ones that are more persistent, and they're sent in deliberately to create doubt and confusion. Sometimes they can be handlers, but a lot of the organic portals are handlers. So if someone just shows up in your life, that can be a synthetic robotic handler. But then if someone is that has been in your life, family, friends, that can be organic handler. But both have no aura, they just have a small energetic signature, and there's no color to it. The robotic or synthetic does have a stronger energy, though, I've noticed. And not all have like the shifting of the eyes. Some of them do. It depends on the entity that's driving that machine, driving that person, driving that vehicle. If you think of the body as a vehicle. The organic portals won't put too much effort in as the robotic or synthetic portals, I've noticed, because they don't have as much energy as the robotic or synthetic. So they'll have more energy. They'll be more colder, in my opinion, more detached. And it can be confusing between the two also. You may not even be able to tell the difference. Let me see. Use discernment. I think I've already talked about that. Eating meat is something that really keeps your vibration in those lower frequencies. Whether you agree with it or not, it's just what it is. Use discernment in the community. Use discernment when it comes to how you're viewing certain things too, like scripture, religion, archons, demons, jinn. Use discernment when you're doing any type of reading also. So there are people that are doing all kinds of tarot readings, but yet they don't really have that discernment built yet. If you can't see the spiritual realm, if you can't see the spirit realm around you, then it makes it even more difficult, because there's that psychological manipulation where some believe that they're connecting to guides and they're not. They're just being used as they're being manipulated. They could even be receiving correct information, but it's just not, the intention behind it is not for your highest good. So using your own discernment, really building that strong inner knowing within yourself, your intuition, is what keeps you protected. If you feel forced to do anything and it doesn't feel right, you feel pushed in any way, that's showing you that your soul's trying to let you know that this isn't alignment with me right now. This doesn't feel good. So you have to listen to that. You can think of this as like that back and forth. So you have your gut instinct that tells you immediately how it feels, and then you'll have the logic, which could be like this devil there on the shoulder, trying to cause doubt or confusion within how you are feeling in the first place. So your intuitive knowing create some type of doubt, so you're not trusting and using your discernment. Because there are such things as false guides, false light. Let me see. And they can make you feel crazy. They can put you down, judgment of others, say that you have problems, or, you'll just be able to tell by how you feel. And it doesn't mean that that person necessarily is intentionally doing that. It could be that there's entities involved that are creating those triggers to infiltrate the auras in order to siphon more energy. Because the real battle, in my opinion, is beginning now. People are really going to start experiencing this if they haven't yet. We're in a level in this ascension, or a phase in this ascension, which is the program. The ascension is a program in this system, which is the matrix, which is artificial, which is an experiment, a psychological experiment. What's happening now at this phase is we're moving past a certain point where the truth of the true reality can no longer remain hidden. So things are going to start speeding up when it comes to this shift, when it comes to the ascension. There's going to be a lot of false things that are put out there, but you're going to know because you'll have the full transparency of the fourth density consciousness. So you'll be able to see beyond those manipulations. You'll be able to see beyond, say, false invasion type thing. You'll be able to see beyond that. Some can create a safety net or a visual or a storyline or some type of support for you in order for you to feel comfortable enough and leave yourself vulnerable. So this is another thing. You have to use your discernment all the time. This is why I don't do readings unless I'm in a certain vibration. Unless I'm picking up on the right energy, I feel completely protected, blocked. And I know a lot of people want me to put out readings every single day, which I do that at times. Like I would put readings out daily. Depends on the energy, what I'm picking up on. When I know that I'm dealing with attacks, or people that I'm connected to are dealing with attacks, or I'm doing a reading and I'm connecting to that person's energy and I'm not having that type of protection, I will not do the reading. I will not put myself in that position. I will not be used as a puppet. The information that I get comes through when it's meant to come through. I don't deliberately say, like, I can get all this information, all these answers for you. I use cards, obviously, to help with my mind and help me connect in that way. But I don't depend on anything outside of my own connection to my soul spirit to receive and connect to information. So when I'm connecting to information or consciousness or other beings, whatever it is, I'm doing that from an internal place. I already built that discernment within myself. And that's something that you have to do if you ever plan on doing this work, if you ever plan on doing, especially right now, people are being used as vessels and you don't even know it. Especially if you're getting into like tarot and things like that. At a moment of trauma, a lot of times a spirit or entity will attach itself. So if there is a traumatic experience, this is really where a lot of times is sexual abuse. That person will live with depression, suicidal thoughts, or become the abuser themselves is because at that moment of trauma, their energetic field was completely opened where that attachment took place. So basically infiltrated deep within their energetic field. And a lot of times that possession can take full strength over a period of time. So years and years when that trauma's taken place and that entity has entered that aura or that soul, they begin to take on full possession of that vehicle or that vessel over time. And this is another thing too, when people are believing that they're connecting with loved ones that have passed over, if you're not in a higher vibration in your own life, in your own experience, and you don't have that discernment, there's a good chance that there's manipulation there. And there's also that generational curse thing, which is basically traumatic experience that had taken place. Someone lived with that entity attachment, that spirit, through their entire life, and then it passed on through that generation as that imprint of the soul, or so that damage or those programs that have been imprinted within the soul or the DNA, the lineage, then it becomes that generational curse. Yeah. So if you're following rituals and things, make sure they're your own. So you're not invoking things that you're not even aware of. Even certain language that's used can keep you in a state of invoking energies and attachments and draining from your energy. And I'll look for the video with the moon cycles and I'll post that. And I do have a bunch of information that's been coming through as far as energy update, and I'll put that up separately because there's a lot of changes that are coming in. I wanted to put this up first because people are going to be seeing the reality different. People are dealing with a lot of attacks right now. People are dealing with a lot of like dark night of the soul, where they're actually seeing beyond the veil, and it can be very scary. The veil is thinning at this time too, so over the next month to 2 months, people are really going to start seeing what's actually existing beyond the physical.